it's an honor to have a friend of mine because we went through this together and got along very well for my entire period of time. So I knew him as a very young man. Now he's just a young man. And he's done a fantastic job.
And we actually turned the murder capital of the world, that was the journalists call it,
right.
Murder capital of the world, into the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. And you know, sometimes they say that we imprisoned thousands. I like to say that we actually liberated millions. So, you know, like,
that's very good. Who gave him that line? Do you think I can use that?
Yes. And in fact, Mr. President, you have 350 million people to liberate. Yeah. But to liberate 350 million people, you have to imprison some. You know, that's the way it works, right? You cannot just free the criminals and think crime's going to go down magically. You have to imprison them so you can liberate 350 million Americans that are asking for the end of crime. Actually, what you're doing with the border is remarkable. It has dropped, what, 95%? It's incredible.
Okay. As of this morning, 99%, 99.1% to be exact.
Why are those numbers not in the media?
Well, they get out, but the fake news, like CNN over here doesn't want to put them out because they don't like putting out good numbers. They only like putting out because I think they hate our country, actually. Jane, you're right. Isn't that a great question? Why doesn't the media? Why don't they put out numbers?
Yeah, 99%. I mean, it's crazy, right?
That's the bare minimum. They should have done that already. They've had plenty of time between.
What I would say, President, if I could, 1 second, just make the point.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no games.
No. It's very good.
He knows.
Congratulations.
And Stephen has done such a great job. We have. Do you have any questions, please? Go. Let's not start with CNN because they're just so wrong. Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead. Let's hear the question from this very low-rated anchor at CNN. Low-rated.
To help return the man who your administration says was mistakenly.
Which one is that?
Deported. The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador.
Well, let me ask Pam. Would you answer that question?
Sure, President. First and foremost, he was illegally in our country, and in 2019, two courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. If they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
So will you return him?
And you are doing a great job. Thank you. Wait a minute. Could you just also respond to that question? Because, it's asked by CNN and they always ask it with a slant because they're totally slanting because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But would you answer that question also?
Yes, gladly. It's very arrogant even for the American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. That issue was raised with the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly, and I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan
But
to
the
ask
Supreme
for
Court's
anything
asking
getting
to.
back?
And what was the ruling in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
In our favor.
in our favor, individual at El Salvador's sole discretion that we could deport him a second time.
Well,
No version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it per the court can only be directed to him.
I asked
¿Se lo liberaría, Presidente Bukele?
Can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to not suggesting that I smuggle terrorists into the United States. Right?
It's only
How can I
Steve.
smuggle? How can I return him to the United States? Like, could I smuggle him into the United States, or whether of course I'm not going to do it.
Well, they'd love to have the criminal,
Yeah,
released into
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people.
The President, Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago. And
How
they
long
said
do we
that-
have to answer this question from you? Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that?
Well, it's illegal.
Why do you go over and over, and that's why nobody watches you anymore? You have no credibility. Please, go ahead. I think everybody has to. The president said it better than anybody.
Do you have any updates on talks
But you know
with
what?
China?
What?
Do you have any updates with talks with China?
No, let me just tell you this. I don't blame China. I don't blame Vietnam. I see their meeting today. Is that wonderful? That's a lovely meeting. They're meeting, like, trying to figure out how do we screw the United States of America? Your prison, how you have to behave.